Hello, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Adam Jattis, Director of Retail and Hospitality Solutions here at TRG, and I'm joined by a couple of colleagues who we'll let introduce themselves in a moment here. But today, we're going to be diving into a few topics in the payments landscape. Before we get started, a couple housekeeping items, okay? We want to keep this session as interactive as possible, so please do use the chat box to submit any questions that come to mind as the discussion unfolds. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can, but based off of time and what we can get to, if we don't get to your question, we'll be sure to follow up with you directly afterwards. So now that we have that out of the way, we're going to introduce our guests and our panelists and go from there. So Steve, we'll start with you.
Good afternoon. My name is Steven Bochners. I'm the Director of Payment Solutions and Point of Sale Solutions here at TRG. Been at TRG for coming up on 4 years here. Been in the payment space for about 8 years. Worked at an OEM prior to TRG, directly involved with gateway integrations and ISV integrations. Before that, worked at a large IT distributor, managing a lot of the different payment OEMs and things like that. I also am an active member and a participant on the PCI organization. So, when it comes to payments and things like that, definitely have a little bit of experience there.
Thanks, Steve. Liz, we'll go to you.
Thank you, Adam. So I'm Liz Everett. I started with TRG in January of 2021. Prior to that, I was with the Phoenix Group and have basically been in the point of sale distribution business for almost 20 years. And then with a very large national acquirer prior to that for 5 years. So total time in the payment space, probably longer than I want to admit to, but definitely around 25 years. And really looking forward to expanding the service offering here at TRG.
Cool. Thanks, Liz. And I'm Adam Jattis, Director of Retail and Hospitality Solutions. I've been with TRG for 12 years now. I was employee number 17 within the organization, and I've been around to see us grow to 280, 290 now. So it's been exciting. I've been in the retail and payment space for about 8 years now. And again, we're really looking forward to the discussion today and the topics we got to cover. So we'll get right to it. So Liz, we're going to start with you. So if you could just kind of elaborate a little bit on what are some of the evolving trends that we're seeing in point of sale payment devices currently in today's day.
Yeah, absolutely, Adam. So I would say that from a pure payments countertop perspective, what we're seeing is definitely the adoption of the Android devices. So traditionally you had the X520s, if you will, or the ICT units. What we're seeing now is those larger OEMs now bringing the Android devices to the space. There's a lot of benefits to that. But that's certainly what we're seeing from a pure countertop standpoint. And then I would say the other large trend that we've seen over the last few years is probably related to, the evolution of tablets and cash store solutions in your traditional retail and restaurant space, as opposed to, a very large ECR system.
Nice, thank you. And actually, we got a couple questions coming in already, Liz. So first question, how easy is it to move to an Android platform, right? And actually, I hear that quite a bit too from all of our customers and everything. So it's a good one. Good question.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that is a great question. So I would say, by and large, moving to an Android platform is easier than you might think. First of all, I'll call it the supply of folks who can actually develop on the Android platform is much more plentiful than I would say any other platform. In addition to that, a lot of the OEMs with their new line of products have gone to what we call a single kernel environment, where you have I'll call it luxury of being able to develop and get certified to one particular device that then is the same kernel as the rest of the devices in that line. Therefore, you don't have to do individual certifications by product like you used to have to do 10 or 15 years ago, which again, obviously makes your time to market faster, gives you the ability to offer a more well-rounded product set to your merchants, to your partners. Additionally, the Android platform really just gives you more benefits in total. You have the ability to be able to extend multiple applications to your merchants based upon who that particular merchant is. It allows you to get more creative and actually customize solutions for your merchants on an Android style platform as opposed to your traditional payments platform historically. Additionally, the Android line of products will actually give you the ability to do things like loyalty and actual consumer targeting, should you choose to do that as a merchant. Additionally, it's enabled us to do things, fun things such as line busting, etc.
Very good. And then the other question that came in, which is right on par with kind of where the industry is, as a distributor / reseller of these products, what supply chain challenges have you recently seen?
Challenge is the right word there, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it. So I would say that at the moment, there are some fairly significant supply chain challenges, quite honestly, across the board. They are primarily around chipsets for some of the new devices. And in addition to that, screens as well. So screens for some of the larger format tablets like 15-inch, 22-inch, etc. All of those things are kind of hampering the ability to get product into the hands of merchants these days. And fortunately or unfortunately, it's not necessarily across the board. So you can't say it's all one OEM or all one product line. It really just depends on the particular product that you're interested in at the moment.
Yeah, and you said it best. I mean, it's not just one line, and it's not even one OEM or one vertical. It's everything within that retail technology space too. We're seeing the similar obstacles and everything. But let me ask you this: what impacts are you seeing to our end user customers? How is it affecting them, and what's it causing them to have to do?
This has actually been somewhat exciting for me because I'll use the word forced in a very general fashion, some merchants and some partners to actually embrace other technology, things like, mobile payments, where they might not have an appetite for that in the future. They may have the ability to get a reader, may have the ability to get, a different type of a device, whether that happen to be, moving them from an NFC or from a card present device to an NFC device to a chip device, what have you. It gives, it's actually encouraged, I think, some of our partners and some merchants to expand their horizons and maybe embrace technology that they might not have wanted to do otherwise, just because that happens to be available at the moment.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move to Steve now and change topics a little bit here. So Steve, with the rise of the cryptocurrencies, which has over the last 5 years, obviously taken off, how do you see this form of payment evolving in the U.S.?
I think in the U.S. it'll be a little bit slower to adopt than you may see worldwide with cryptos, and a lot of it is due to the unregulation of it. The beauty of crypto is the fact that it's very discreet. You don't know who has it or what they're doing with it, how it moves from one entity to the other. I mean, that's why a lot of hackers or the bad people of the world utilize that as a form of payment, because to a point it's very hard to trace. Although recently, with certain, attacks with ransomware and stuff like that, there were ways to kind of backtrack, some of it, but again, they still couldn't 100% recover it. So with that being said, I think in the U.S. there's going to be a little bit of a slow to market or slow to adopt kind of environment for crypto, kind of similar to pay a table in the US, in other entities, even in Canada, pay a table is very, very, very normal, right? It's been in place for over 10 years. It's a form of custom. I mean, they're just used to doing it. People are very protective of their credit cards, not like the US where we're so willing to give it up to anybody and hope for the best, right? So I think until processors and other, entities such as PCI and places like that have a little bit more of an understanding of how to regulate it, monitor it, and more importantly, if something bad does happen, what are your abilities to kind of get it back, right? How can you, if something goes bad now, there's ways to trace it back and fix your environment and make sure people are being held accountable or not held accountable. The way crypto is right now, it's a little bit difficult.
Okay, very good. We had a question come in, okay, while you're talking there. Someone attendant had asked, where is crypto actually being accepted as a form of payment?
So, I mean, if you look at different parts of the world where maybe their baseline banking is a little bit volatile, right? Venezuela right now, their financial backing is all over the place, where crypto is actually more stable and more secure than their own financial backing within the country. So even companies like Burger King and some other larger, normal name places that we hear about are actually accepting, Bitcoin and different crypto environments in their restaurants there, just because, again, the volatility of their own financial backing is not as stable as it is here in the U.S., right? So therefore, it's a little bit more accepted in countries like Venezuela. I mean, you will see Bitcoin ATMs in Europe, but again, it depends on the euro, it depends on the regulations. PCI, which, we are an active participant on the PCI organization and have some visibility to some of these changes. I just think until there's more adaptation and adoption across the globe, it's going to be very hard to kind of see a lot more kind of acceptance of crypto. And I think that's why you'll see the other form of kind of cardless, cashless payments, which is QR codes.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Liz, we're going to move to a question for you. What are you seeing in terms of where payments and mobile technology is headed?
Yeah, that is a great question. I would, it's been interesting to watch that technology evolve, kind of similar to what we were just, talking about a few moments ago. The pandemic has had a significant impact on the industry, on payments, on acceptance. Not only from the acquirer standpoint and the OEM standpoint from a supply chain constraint perspective, but all the way down to the consumer. We as consumers now have what I'll call the luxury of being able to do things like, buy online, pick up in store, curbside pickup, and all of those things have a payment component to it. And at the moment, some of that is, migrating from an actual retail brick and mortar environment to an e-commerce environment, or to an actual cardless, cashless environment, in addition to using things, such as QR codes and that sort of thing. So it's been very exciting to watch us sort of propel forward in the payment space. To things along those lines, it would be interesting to see what, where we would be or how long it would take us to embrace those things had the pandemic not occurred.
Thanks, Liz. And I have to admit, I am an advocate of that as well, because I never carry cash or lose change. In fact, the other day I was parked at a parking meter, and there I am digging in my trunk of my golf bag looking for loose change in order to feed the meter, because I can't find it anywhere. So
right.
I'm excited for that to happen personally. But so what you're saying though is that cash is diminishing out there just in general with everybody, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, I'm the person who shops at the grocery store that delivers my groceries, because I don't want to go in. I want to have as much stuff delivered to me as I possibly can, because for me, time is money. That's time I could be, golfing or, doing something else fun with my time, as opposed to doing my weekly grocery shopping. So, yeah.
I second that. So basically, with everybody using less cash, right? Everyone's going to be going more to card transaction, and with that brings up a number of different concerns and security issues that come along with it. So Steve, I'm going to move to you. What are the security challenges that card acceptors are facing out there in today's, I guess, credit card world?
I would say, a lot of the challenges facing, card acceptors or the organizations that work as accepting payment is that there's been so many evolutions of the payment experience over the past few years. I mean, even as, in the US, if you look back from 2016 till today, there's been numerous changes. In 2016, that's when the US started moving to chip and pin, transactions. So a payment terminal is not only asked to swipe and to recognize NFC, now you're taking on a dip. As we continue to advance, it's asking to take on different forms of NFC payments. It's being asked to, run QR codes. It's asked to do facial recognitions and fingerprint. So there's a lot of, kind of moving pieces there from a security standpoint, right? So that's why you're seeing more and more things are getting cloud-based. A lot of things are being more network-based. You'll find more and more layers where, there's different entities that are being responsible for managing different parts of the payment cycle, where the hardware is just the hardware, but even the hardware providers are putting in their own software and different layers of security to ensure that, there's a lot of data flow, and a lot of it's being more and more owned by the consumer, and you're utilizing the security features and functionalities embedded with your own devices. So, with the acceptance of all these mobile wallets and mobile loyalty cards and things like that, all those are being embedded within the application, where, your phone is technically your credit card now. It's your wallet, it's your purse, it's your livelihood. So, they're trying to put more and more security parameters internally, but at the same time, there's a lot more going on with the app development and the security wrapped around your phone. That's a lot of the things that the card acceptors not only have to look at things they can control, but you can't control sometimes people's own behaviors interacting with the phone. So that's where the challenge is.
Very good. And as we all know, every CIO across the globe, that's one of their top concerns right now is network security and just security in general for all their information. We did have a question come in. You mentioned loyalty programs was mentioned earlier. How are these loyalty programs and payments uniting in the industry right now?
It's that whole thing of trying not to use dirty cash, right? COVID has really put people in this fear mode of exchanging, having that interchange or that exchange of not even just your credit card, right? The germs of money and how many people touch it and how it's stored and everything. So, we look at the different apps, right? I think everybody has an app now, no matter what environment it is, big, small, really doesn't matter. And during COVID, a lot of people went to, apps and QR codes to have you read a menu. And from there, you were logging in and creating a profile, and you could tie your payment information into that. So now, if you're looking at from big box to small box, you have a chance now to connect with your consumer base. You now got them lined up for loyalty programs. You're signed into you make a profile. So now you're kind of being marketed without you ever realizing it to a point, right? So, I think it's great from a data collection standpoint. I know a lot of businesses love having as much information on our behaviors as much as possible. So not only that, they know our preferences. They know the things that we like to order, the things we like to eat, the things we like to drink. And now we've embedded our payment into there. So I don't even think twice. Your buying behavior changes when you don't have to pull out your credit card or look for cash, right? If I am one fingerprint or one swipe or one scan of my face when completing a payment, I don't have time to think about it, and I'm more likely to keep buying and keep doing different things. So, your buying behavior becomes more instant. We can track a lot of what you're doing. You can utilize that data, analyze that data. You can create programs around it. So companies, that's why there's CMOs now, chief marketing officers that are just eating up this data like crazy. But now the merchant or the consumer that has these apps or utilizing these apps, they have more control of how things are being targeted. And at the end of the day, I do think it's a little bit of a cost savings when you're doing things, through apps and things like that, because you're not worried about, the loss prevention kind of stuff, right? Cash is not disappearing. You're not counting drawers. You're not holding on to credit card information. There's a lot of things that are now being removed from the merchant that are more pushed back on the consumer, right? If I have an app and I have my card stored on that app and I'm carrying that app, I didn't give up my credit card. I'm not giving up cash. So therefore that merchant's kind of less likely to have to be responsible if something goes wrong. So I think that's where all this has went. And I think COVID just put this thing in hyperdrive. And I think it was a much needed move in the US for a long time, because even today,
Yeah.
we are light years behind the rest of the world when it comes to how we process payments.
Can you talk a little bit about how the rest of the world processes payments?
So I mean, if you look at, even if you go to Europe, I mean, if no one's been to Europe, but if you go to Europe, they don't even have black stripes on their card, right? So I mean, if you try to get on a bus in London, like, it's tap and go, and it's been that way for years. Or I'm lucky enough where I live right on the border of Canada, but I can tell you, when I first was able to cross the border at 19 without my parents and could go, up and go to the falls and do things like that, payment terminals are being shoved down your throat because, God forbid, you hand them a credit card, they're like, oh my God, I can't touch it. Because in their head and their mentality and their customs are, I touch that card, I own that card. I'm not touching that card. So the behavior is just a lot different, where things are very tap and go, dip and go. You hold on to your card like it's your lifeline. In the U.S., it's I don't know what is it, but we're so just willing to give up our information, and hence that's why we're targeted so much from all corners of the world. We're sitting ducks when it comes to ransomwares and hackers and stealing information, because even though we still are using chip, we're not using it as the way the rest of the world does. We're doing chip and sign. So if you swipe your card and scribble your name, it's no different than dipping and signing your name. You're just scribbling, right? Although the transaction, one's static, one's dynamic, but the rest of the world, they don't. When the U.S. said we'll go do chip and sign, the rest of the world again looked at us and said, why? There's no different than what you're doing. Chip and pin is really the way to go, or tap, or utilizing your own device. So where we sit, we're not even close to where the rest of the world is when it comes to that.
And we all know COVID has taken us a lot further, a lot faster, because of all the things that have happened over the last 18 months. But it'd be exciting to see what happens in the future as it goes. But all right, I think that sums up all of our topics that we had scheduled for today. So thanks again to Liz and Steve for joining us today, and more importantly, thanks to everybody who joined us on the webinar. Right. Again, if you weren't able to get your questions in during the session, we'll be in touch very soon to make sure that we get the answers to you. After the webinar ends, you're going to be redirected to a short survey. We really appreciate if you take a couple of minutes just to complete that. It's short, and then we're always just looking for feedback as well as ideas for the future sessions, and more importantly, what's valuable to our customer base and our audience out here. And the final housekeeping items I've got. So the Talk About gift cards will be sent out within the next 3 business days. We're going to send those from our CRM platform. So be sure to check your spam filters, because sometimes that'll grab it and it'll get hung up in there. Save the date for our next Talk About Lunch and Learn is going to be for September 14th at 12 p.m. Eastern. We'll be joined that day by experts from TRG and SpectraLink. We'll be discussing device management and analytics that you can pull out of it. We'll put a link in the chat box here so that you guys can put on your calendar sooner rather than later. And with that being said, I think we're all set here. Thanks again to our panelists. Thank you for joining and for the time today. And have a great rest of the day, great rest of the week. Thank you, everybody.